Hey guys, it's Brad. So, as we find ourselves in between house hacks, we wanted to take some time to reflect on some of the lessons learned and also share them with you. And we promised we'll make another video after this about the things that we did do well, but for now we're going to focus on the top 3 things that we learned from this house hack. And we want to emphasize that we are using the terms lesson learned instead of mistakes, because we really feel that we are using these lessons to apply to the next house hacks. And we don't regret or wish we had done anything differently, because if that was the case, then we probably would not have learned these lessons as well as we did. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Ready?
The first and biggest lesson we learned from this house hack is the type of house we bought. And I don't mean single family home versus duplex or triplex, or even the layout of the house. The layout was pretty good for house hacking. I mean the type of workmanship that was done on this house. As we lived in the house for longer, we realized that a lot of the work, a lot of the renovations were done DIY and were done very poorly. And this really sucked, because not only did we have to spend money on renovating it, but we also had to spend money on taking all that work apart and discarding of all those good materials. So that really sucked, and something that we're gonna do on the next house hack is definitely analyze and inspect any renovations that seem to have been done. If this looks like a recent flip or a recent renovation, we're definitely gonna look at all the small details, because if the small details are lacking, then it's likely that some of the bigger, more important details and systems in the house are maybe not operational or safe for people to live in, which we really care about. And this is also not to say that we think we should not have bought a fixer-upper. We're actually glad that we bought a fixer-upper and spent some time renovating it, but in the future, we want to buy something that is just more of a blank slate, if you will, that hasn't been touched up at all, and we can just get in there and start from scratch, because that's easier than having to sort through, is this work done well or not? And so I think more 1 or 0, more binary, if you will, more of a fixer-upper or more ready to go. But if it is ready to go, if it looks turnkey, then really doing the due diligence to make sure that everything was done correctly, getting permits if necessary, getting a professional inspector out there. And we've shown examples of this in some of our previous videos. So the deck, if you remember, that was probably our first renovation video. The deck was done really poorly, and we just spent so much time just taking apart that deck because it was really poorly done. And then even in the basement, a lot of the framing was done DIY, and it was just such a pain to take it all apart and then get professional framing in there after that. The second lesson learned is much easier said than done. So back in March, right before the Rona hit, we had one room that was vacant, and I really wanted it to be filled, because then we would be cash flowing. Actually, we would have more money coming in than actual mortgage. So that I thought would be so cool, and it would have been. So I really wanted to get a tenant. So I had it posted for a while, and I was just not getting some good hits on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and other places we had it posted. And then finally this one guy said, I can move in like tomorrow, but I'll be honest with you, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I don't have the rent money right now, but I promise I'll get it to you in 2 weeks. And of course I was like, okay, what do I do? So I talked this over with Chloe, and obviously I should listen to Chloe more, which that's the biggest lesson learned from this whole house hack in the past year, honestly, because Chloe's always right. So the compromise that Chloe and I arrived at is we'll take a higher security deposit from him, and we can let him live here just for 1 month, and we'll see how it goes. So we drafted a 1 month lease for the month of March, and we took a higher security deposit, and he ended up being a pretty cool guy. He was obviously working a lot to try to pay the rent, which we definitely empathize and sympathize with. And don't get me wrong, this guy was super nice, and he did not do anything to destroy or ruin the property at all. He ended up paying the rent just 1 week later than he said he would. So all in all, it was kind of a wash in terms of productivity. We still got our rent money, and he didn't do anything to break the property. We really just got a lesson learned, and that is you really have to screen your tenants and stick to your criteria. Even when a global pandemic is on the rise, and this is not to say that you shouldn't help people out. I think we definitely helped this guy out, but it wasn't the right thing to do in terms of a business standpoint. that's kind of the issue that I ran into, because I'm kind of a pushover personally. I really sympathize with people in these situations, and that's part of the reason we have property managers managing our full-time rental in Colorado, is because I just know myself, and I know that I really sympathize and a pushover for this kind of things. So we're really happy that we have professional management doing these things. So lesson number 2 is always stick to your criteria, even when you're under pressure, like really wanting to get a room filled, or even when there is a global pandemic on the rise. The third lesson has to do with renovations. So we spent a lot of money fixing this place up, definitely way more than we thought we would. I don't have an exact number for you, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of $50,000 to $60,000. So yeah, a lot. Anyway, the best example of this lesson that we'll get to is the windows in our house. And I've been withholding this from you guys for a long time because I'm honestly kind of embarrassed of it, but it's not that bad, so stick with me. So the windows in our house when we first moved in would not close, they would not lock. And so there were some that were pretty bad, they were pretty drafty, and that was really annoying. The actual windows themselves are pretty good, they were double pane and they did a pretty good job of insulating, but something about the wicked soil and elements of Colorado combined with the poor workmanship that we mentioned in lesson 1 was probably attributable to why the windows were not closed. So one day a door-to-door salesman for windows comes by our house and asked me, hey, do you guys want to set up a no obligation, no pressure consultation for new windows? And knowing me, I was like, well, I guess we need new windows, so yeah, might as well. And then before you know it, during that consultation, I'm signing up for new windows. And so getting right to it, all 6 of our windows on the main floor were replaced on January 24th, 2020. And these cost a lot of money. So I got one of those 2-year, no interest, no payments loans. So I actually still haven't paid for it at all. And I don't plan on paying for it until right around 23 months, just because I do not want to come close to hitting that 24-month limit. So they cost $13,500 for all 6 of these new windows. Anyway, the 2 sub lessons I want to share with you guys from lesson number 3 is to first always see if you can do a repair on any system before you just replace them. So this is not to say that you should cheap out and be a slumlord and just do the cheapest thing possible. No, this is saying if it is repairable, if it is fixable, definitely see if you can do that, because that'll just prolong the life of it. If you watch Meet Kevin, which you definitely should, he talks a lot about this, and that is you don't want to be a slumlord where the safety and health of the house is in question. You always want to have a safe and healthy environment for your tenants to live, which we totally agree with and we definitely tried doing, as is evidence from our previous videos. But for this, we didn't even get any other window professional out there to look at it and say, hey, maybe you can just fix it this way, we can do this cheap fix, and then boom, we just saved ourselves tens of thousands of dollars, literally, because we were proactive and we got someone out there to see if there's a repair. So sub lesson 1 of lesson 3 is always see if you can do a repair of these major subsystems in your house, because you'll save yourself a lot of money and a lot of headaches instead of just ripping everything out, demolishing everything, and then replacing it. That is going to take so much more time. And then sub lesson 2 from lesson 3 is try to stay away from these big brand name companies. So this is, a company with door-to-door salespeople, professional salespeople, brick and mortar locations, receptionists, secretaries, and all they do is just turn around and then sub it out to other contractors that you would have hired anyway. I would rather pay top dollar for a contractor who has crafted his skills and has really good skill than for all this overhead that we just mentioned. On top of that, these windows that we got still had some problems, so they still wouldn't lock. And luckily, we have a good relationship with this big brand name company, so their service team comes out after like a few weeks as we schedule and fixes it. But still, I don't think their work is anywhere better than if you were to go out and do the diligence of finding good, top, high quality contractors. So the lessons from lesson 3 are always see if you can do a repair rather than a whole replacement. And then the other thing is try to stay away from these big brand name companies that have fancy websites, salespeople, receptionists. You gotta go on hold when you call them. Really just try to find the down-to-earth contractors who have that same, if not better skill, but work for themselves rather than for these big companies. We hope you can take our lessons learned and apply them to your future house hacks to avoid future headaches for yourself. We're certainly happy that no major or serious consequences happen from these, and that we were able to do these on a relatively small scale, right? We did not lose tons of money or tons of time doing this. And we're also really grateful that we have the time to be able to reflect on these lessons learned and also not beat ourselves up from them. We realize that we're young, that this is our first time, and of course there's going to be mistakes. No matter how many books or podcasts we consume, this is obviously the first time we're actually doing it, and we really believe that doing it is the best way to actually learn it. So always watch our channel, obviously, but really seriously get out there and do it. If you want to learn anything, I don't care what it is, doesn't have to be real estate or finance. If you want to learn a skill, you just got to go out there and actually do it. That's how you'll actually learn. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you keep an eye out for our next video where we go over the top 3 things that we did really well and really happy we did, and we're definitely going to apply to the next house hack.